Welcome to Moving Panels One Shot. This is our mini episodes where my guest and I will discuss a single topic that we felt deserved just a short little conversation. And returning to the guest host chair is Mr. Blake Fowler.
Laramy, it's awesome to be back, man, and I'm eager and excited to discuss a one-shot episode on a topic that I feel is often not talked about enough.
Yeah, so Blake and I decided we wanted to debate, discuss, and kind of try to figure out who has had the best, I guess you would say emotionally, like
most impactful.
When we say best death, because it's hard to say best death and not sound inconsiderate.
Right, I'm not happy they died most of the time.
So who had the best death in a superhero movie, but at the same time, who had the worst deaths? And we'll kind of narrow it down, maybe pick one for each. Now, I do want to be clear before we get into this conversation, we are not discussing comic book deaths. We are only discussing the deaths as they appeared in the movies and television shows as they were on screen. That is all we are going to talk about.
Right. Like, we don't want to step on the toes of any purists out there, anybody who's saying, hey, that didn't happen in the comic books. We're just talking about the movies, everybody. So no need to lose your mind over it.
So Jonathan Kent will come up.
He's here. He's here, and I won't give anything away, but he's here.
All right, so let's get through it. Blake and I have both made a list. We're going to kind of talk through our lists and see what we had in common, see if maybe one of us thought of a death that the other one didn't. So that way we can establish our baseline, and these are the ones we want to narrow it down from, and we'll kind of go from there. So where do you want to start, Blake?
Well, I think for me, for you, for everybody listening, I think it's important that we establish, are we counting the people who die and then come back again? Do they really die?
Yeah, see, I actually have those. I have a section that I wrote down that it was die, didn't die.
Question mark, maybe?
Yeah, so I say we kind of consider them. So we can knock them out pretty quick.
Okay, so who are you talking about?
So the first couple I have are Batman and Superman. So
okay.
Batman from Dark Knight Rises. Now I know what you're gonna say is that
let's hear it.
He didn't actually die, although it's Christopher Nolan. As far as we know, the ending was Inception. We don't know that Alfred actually saw that. I would have needed a top spinning to find that out. So it could be that
you would not talk about Christopher Nolan like that.
Yeah. So it could be that Bruce Wayne, Batman, died, and Alfred was just reminiscing there at the end, or maybe he didn't. And so, is that a death or not death?
Okay. Well, first of all, clearly your superpower is mind reading, psychic abilities, because that's exactly what I was going to say on this topic. You don't ever see Bruce Wayne's death, or Batman's death, and Lucius Fox talks about how the autopilot and the bat planes fixed everything, and for all intents and purposes, for my sake, Bruce Wayne / Batman didn't die. He's living happily ever after with Anne Hathaway, which kudos to him. I mean, good good for you, man. And all's well that ends well. Unlike you get these deaths, quote unquote, like Spider-Man, Peter Parker in Infinity War, where he dies, but then he comes back in the very next movie. Wait a minute, are those real tears for Peter Parker, Laramy Wills?
It's not tears, but that's such an emotional one. Because again, the whole Mr. Stark, I don't feel good. I mean, that just strikes a nerve. So the question is, I'll give you Batman. So Batman didn't die. Okay, so we'll throw Batman out. So are we saying that the people who were dusted by Thanos during the snapping, that they didn't die either?
First of all, trademark TM copyright snapping. That's good. That's really good.
I don't think I'm the first one to come up with that.
Okay, well, I'd always called it the snapple, so I will go with snapping from now on. And no. So here's my thing with the snapping. Yes, they get dusted, but there's no emotional impact for me, mainly because they'd already released trailers and media for the next movie in which all the characters were back and everybody was okay. Peter Parker already had another Spider-Man movie coming out they were advertising for. Zero emotional impact with the dusting of those Marvel characters for me. So they're out as far as I'm concerned, as far as deaths.
Okay, and I'm good with that as well. But let's stay within that movie. What about Groot?
Oh, okay. So there's some tears from me on Groot. I hadn't thought about Groot because he dies and they guys replant him, right? I mean, they like put him back in.
So at the end of Guardians of the Galaxy, he's blown up, essentially burned,
right? Yeah,
incinerated, and then they find a twig from him. They replant it, and he comes back. So, did he die? Did he not die?
Because okay, I'm gonna say it is a death because when a plant dies, you can replant part of that plant and it comes back as a new plant. So yeah, we're gonna say Groot's death. I think I would have that in one of the best deaths categories because for me and my money, We Are Groot is better than I Love You 3000 every day of the week and twice on Sunday.
Look, can we go back though to when Groot, going back to the dusting, when Groot dusts and he actually calls Rocket Dad?
Okay. You're going to have a grown man crying on this podcast if you're not careful, Laramy. I have that in my list as one of the best emotional deaths that's not an actual death because he does come back, but he reaches out for Rocket and says, "Dad, good stuff."
What about Gamora? Did she die? Because we do get Gamora back, even though it's not the same Gamora.
Okay, dude. So Gamora is 100% a death, first of all, and it's one of my, let's say, top 5 emotional best deaths in a superhero movie for a few reasons. Number one, she's a beloved character. Like everybody, I think, universally would say Gamora is one of their favorite Guardians of the Galaxy characters, Avengers characters. Then her death has real consequences. All right, so she dies, and Peter Quill goes off the deep end and almost loses the fate of the world. Yes, and for me, especially, it was unexpected. Like 1 minute she's there, next minute Thanos is chucking her off a cliff out of nowhere. Mm-hmm. Maybe my vision's not that good, but I did not have the foresight to see that coming.
Well, I mean, I saw it coming, but
that's because you are an expert in this. All right, the layman here didn't see it happening.
All right, so do we put Gamora down in the best death column?
I would say she's one of the best. Even though she quote unquote comes back, she has no idea who she is or what's going on. For all intents and purposes, she died.
Okay. All right. So let's. With that being said, I want to go back to my man, Superman.
Okay.
So in Batman vs. Superman, Superman is killed by Doomsday, and then he returns in Justice League. So do we call it a death?
Here's where I battle with that one, because initially when he comes back, and correct me if I'm wrong, he has that I don't really know who I am or what my purpose is, because he attacks the League. Mm-hmm. But because he comes back around and has that memory, for me, I don't have him on either list. I didn't count that as a death for me personally, because he ends up regaining who he is as Superman.
And even though we're talking about the movies and not the comic, you know, it was kind of established in the comic with the death of Superman that he didn't actually die. It was that his heart only beat, like, I can't remember the exact time, like every 14 days or something.
Yeah, like a slow down heartbeat, yeah.
Yeah, I will say, though, if you had agreed that he was a death, I was going to put it in the worst category, because
it would be in one of the worst deaths, yeah.
It's a horrible one. All right, so let's move on to some of mine, and we can go back and forth. Okay. So first off, you got to talk about what I always say, that the only person who ever stayed dead in the comics is Uncle Ben. So
and in the movies, he's died like 18 times now, right?
Every time they reboot Spider-Man, they have to kill Uncle Ben.
The guy can't dodge the mugger. It's terrible.
So how impactful have you ever been seeing Uncle Ben die in the movies?
Tobey Maguire Spider-Man was absolutely impactful. And I think that might stem from my age at the time, and just seeing that for the first time. I'd read the comics, but seeing it visually on the screen hit me really, really hard. But it's been tainted over the years because I've seen it so many times now.
Yeah, that's the way it is with me. I think that as impactful as it is to the story, and because Uncle Ben's death to me is more impactful than Thomas and Martha Wayne's death in terms of
Agreed.
the death being the catalyst of creating the superhero. But I agree, it's been done and redone so much that Uncle Ben's death just doesn't affect me. It just is what it is.
I recall going to see it the Andrew Parker Spider-Man with my youngest brother, and Uncle Ben dies, and I look at my youngest brother, and I'm like, don't worry, this has happened before. It'll happen again later. And he's like, what are you talking about? And now he's old enough to know they kill him in every franchise.
Yeah. All right, so Uncle Ben, we're sorry, but you don't make our list. Yeah, staying with Spider-Man, though, I'm going to go and throw mine out, and then I'll let you throw one out. Gwen Stacy.
Oh, Gwen, I was so happy you said Gwen Stacy. One of the most impactful, especially love interest deaths for me. You think he's going to save her. You think
the shot of his web looking like a hand trying to grab for her as she's falling. It's
like I felt him, like I felt for him in that moment. I had that emotional connection in that moment.
Yeah, because it's the fact that he does grab her, but just a second too late.
Right.
And she still smacks that concrete floor.
And the way it's shot is because at first you don't know. At first you think, okay, he's saved her, he got her. And then you slowly replay what just happened and realize, bam, she smacked.
She still hit it, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's on the best side for sure.
All right, so Gwen Stacy's down. So do you have one you want to throw out?
I'm just gonna go all in right here, right from the get go. Logan.
Yes.
For my money, easily the best X-Men death. Which we'll get to that in a second. But ton of bad X-Men deaths. But the arc that Logan goes through, if you want to keep all the X-Men franchise happenings in that same arc. But the development he goes through as a character, even just in that movie, to have it end like that with him oh man, it was just, I've got chills talking about it right now. And maybe the most beloved character in comic movies of all time.
Yeah. And I think that's what makes it such a big deal, is because that was Hugh Jackman playing Wolverine Logan for the 8th time. Right. And so that was a big deal. All right, so Logan definitely down in the best category. Yep. I've got to throw out, I'm the Superman guy, I got to throw out Jonathan Kent. Now, we can talk about all three of them. So We've got Glenn Ford in the original. That one is very impactful to me. I just love his delivery, especially when he's just told Clark, you're here for a reason, but he doesn't know the reason. And then he's walking, Clark runs off, and he grabs his arm, and you just hear he knows what's happening, and he goes, "Oh no!" And it's just such a powerful scene. They don't milk it, and it just goes right in there. But if I were to say the best Jonathan Kent death, it's actually the television one. It's John Schneider in Smallville.
Oh, interesting.
And I think that's because you have been with him for so long, and you've really gotten to see him be Clark's father, which you didn't get in the Christopher Reeve movie. I've got to put that out there. We can debate it a little bit more if we narrow him down further, but I'm going to put Jonathan Kent on there, the John Schneider version.
Okay.
Now, at the same time, I'm going to put Kevin Costner's Jonathan Kent in the worst category. Because the reach my hand out and kind of wave you off so that I get sucked up by a tornado, even though I know that my son could save me at this exact moment, but I don't want him to reveal himself to the world. I get that he knew that Clark wasn't ready, and he wanted him to keep his identity, and I get all of that, but you would think Clark should have been fast enough. It just seemed unnecessary. It seemed too dramatic, melodramatic, really.
Being the Superman expert here, could he not have done it in the blink of an eye, man? Like without anybody even seeing it?
Yeah. I would
Bam,
think
goes
so.
out there, gets him, comes back. Now, this is also coming from the same Jonathan Kent who, again, correct me if I'm wrong, essentially told Clark you shouldn't have saved a bus full of children, too.
Yeah.
Because,
again, it was all about, exposure. Yeah.
So it is on, program for that Jonathan Kent, but it's a terrible death. Just the reaching out the hand to don't come near, don't do it. It wasn't for me.
So honorable mention to Glenn Ford, but we're gonna put John Snyder's Jonathan Kent in best. We're gonna put
Kevin
Costner's Jonathan Kent in worst. All right, you got another one for me?
Yeah, can we talk about how bad the not death, of Cyclops in X-Men The Last Stand is?
Can we talk about all of the deaths in X-Men The Last Stand?
So, again, many X-Men, Iceman in X-Men, I believe it's Days of Future Past or Apocalypse, I can't remember which one, it's bad. A lot of the X-Men deaths are bad.
Yeah.
But this one, we've spent time with Jean Grey and Cyclops over these films, and they kill my man off screen and just leave his goggles floating in the air. It's awful. I'm frustrated thinking about it right now.
Yeah. So I'm literally just in the worst category. I'm just writing every X-Men death.
Yeah. Okay. I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm good.
Okay,
Except for Logan.
Yeah, except for Logan. But
every other.
That's not in an X-Men movie. Every death in an X-Men movie is under worst death. I'm going to go ahead and hit it. He's been staring here on my list. Tony Stark.
Okay. Yeah, that's, again, for me, it's not as good as We Are Groot, but I Love You 3000 is a rallying cry to Marvel and comic book fans around the world at this point in time, which I think speaks for itself.
Thanos saying, I am inevitable, and then not being able to snap, and then Tony, the stones coming up into his glove, and then I am Iron Man, and so good. And then you get Pepper running to his side, and good.
the call back to when he initially reveals himself to be Iron Man with the I am Iron Man thing, everything tying it together. It's got to be arguably right there as the best, most impactful on screen. Even the funeral after is impactful. Watching everybody gather for his funeral,
especially the one kid that no one recognized, and everybody had to be told who he was.
Yes, that's another discussion for another one shot.
All right, you got anybody else?
I really liked, and he's a villain, but one of the best deaths for me was Killmonger in Black Panther.
Okay.
I think that he had a great story arc, misunderstood, mischaracterized in a lot of situations. And I hate the cliche villain last line thing. So for my money, for my ticket value, his last line of just bury me in the ocean with my ancestors was a hair-raising last line, and that alone almost for me makes him one of my best, most emotional deaths in a comic book movie.
Okay. Let's hit some other villains then, if we're gonna include some villains. So let's just go rapid fire here, and just let me know if you want to discuss it.
Okay.
Jack Nicholson's Joker.
Doesn't need to be discussed. Been done.
Okay. Dark Knight Rises Two-Face.
Okay, let's talk about it.
Okay.
Is he a bad guy or is he a good guy? Right?
Yes.
Like he's
Isn't that the whole point of Two-Face?
Exactly. So he's had the world turned against him. He's lost everything, and in the end, I didn't get enough of him. It's a bad death because I didn't get enough of him.
All right, so we're putting that one in the worst death category.
Yes.
All right. What about Batman Forever Two-Face?
I had too much of him. It's a great death. Goodbye. See you later.
All right. Dr. Octopus, Spider-Man 2.
In order not to taint, because I want to hear your opinion. What do you think? What do you think about Doc Ock? Because he's a great character. Probably the best Spider-Man villain I've seen so far.
Yes. I will agree. He's probably one of the best Spider-Man villains they've portrayed in the movies. I think his death's great. I think with the list we're coming up with, he doesn't have a chance, though.
No, he doesn't. Okay.
So, but no, yeah, Alfred Molina is brilliant in that role. I love that he gets the redemption there at the end and saves everybody, and that ultimately causes his downfall. So
certainly an honorable mention.
Yes, and speaking of, I want to just throw out for other honorable mentions because I don't think they have a chance. Quicksilver from Age of Ultron, Oliver Queen from Arrow. I think that's an honorable mention as well.
Yes, I'd forgotten. Yeah, okay. No, that is a good one.
So I have one more on my list. So unless you have one more, I'm going to shoot out my last one.
Let's have it.
Black Widow.
Oh.
You mentioned about Gamora's earlier.
Yep.
Black Widow.
Let me say it like this. In the moment, incredibly impactful. The sacrifice, because you think, again, it's one of those situations you don't think is actually going to happen, and then it does. But some of the impact's taken away, even though it's a prequel, because we're getting a Black Widow movie, and I'm going to see her back on screen again.
Okay.
So it takes away some of the sting.
All right, so let's start narrowing this down, and I am going to go ahead and take out Gamora and Groot, mainly for the same argument you just gave.
Okay, all right, fair enough.
We will see them again.
Okay.
Of course, you could almost make that argument about Tony Stark too, because he is supposed to make a cameo.
That's what I hear. Fingers crossed.
We've heard he's supposed to make a cameo in the Black Widow movie. All right, so we're down to, for Best Death, we're down to Gwen Stacy in The Amazing Spider-Man, Logan from Logan, Jonathan Snyder's version of Jonathan Kent in Smallville, Tony Stark in Endgame, and Killmonger in Black Panther.
I think you got to take out, unfortunately, Killmonger and Gwen Stacy because they have one movie each.
I agree.
You're not with them long enough to really build that connection. I cannot speak from personal experience on John Schneider's Smallville.
Okay.
So I'm gonna leave that part to you.
Well, since this is the two of us discussing, we need to come to a consensus. So since you can't defend him or defend an argument for him, so we're down to Logan or Tony Stark. Who had the best death in comic books?
It's got to be Tony Stark, right? I mean, I don't know if there's.
I agree.
As much as I loved the Logan movie, and I love Hugh Jackman as Logan, as Wolverine, Tony Stark's death was an international phenomenon.
Yes. Yeah, Logan's death, as emotional as it was cathartic. You went, it's almost, you kind of just want to look down at him and go, well done. Yeah, well done.
You've been here forever. Go rest.
Yeah, you want to give him a slow clap.
Yep. You got to know when to start the slow clap, though. But no, you do 100%. And Tony Stark, he's got a daughter at home. He just found happiness with Pepper. Yeah, I think that has to be the best, most emotional comic book movie death.
Yeah. Now, I mean, people could argue that it's probably still the freshest of all of those. It's the last big moment we've had in comic book movies, but we're saying it right now. The best, most impactful, emotional death in comic book movies goes to Tony Stark. All right.
Hear.
So let's just knock out worst. So we've narrowed it down to the Man of Steel, Jonathan Kent, getting sucked up by the tornado. We've got Dark Knight Rises Two-Face. We've got every other X-Men. And then I wrote one in. We didn't talk about it, but I just wrote them in so that we have at least 4. And that's General Zod.
Oh, okay. So, you've just started me up. I want to have a whole discussion, but okay, we're going to take that for what it is. I also want to honorable mention as worst death Talia al Ghul real quick in Dark Knight Rises. Everybody talks about it, but it is a terrible scene in death. So that's, again, for another time. For me, worst death has got to be Jonathan Kent in Man of Steel. For me, it's preventable. It serves no purpose to the story. It's just pointless. Yeah,
because, again, the Two-Face death, it at least serves a purpose. And it's very impactful. You understand why. Yes, you understand. Yes. Zod's death, as horrible as it is, because Superman has to kill him. And so it's not the death, it's the effect of the death that makes it so bad.
You get the morose Superman following that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My thing about the X-Men deaths is the movies just aren't good. So, of course, the deaths are horrible.
Fair assessment.
Yeah, every single one of them. I mean, even from the very first one, because we assume that Storm killed Toad by electrocuting him with and there was again your little one-liners. You know what happens to a Toad?
Cringe. Super
so
cringe.
Horrible. All right, so for what should have been such an emotional moment to be played over too dramatically, we are saying the worst death as of right now in a comic book adaptation movie goes to Kevin Costner's portrayal of Jonathan Kent in Man of Steel.
Here once again.
All right, so once again, wrapping it up, best death, Tony Stark, hands down. Worst death, possibly debatable. I'm not going to say it's definitive. Feel free at Moving Panels on Twitter. Feel free to shoot us a message. movingpanels@gmail.com. Send us an email. But we're going with Jonathan Kent in Man of Steel.
And yeah, I'd love the discussion. Somebody else has got a worse or better death. We'd love to hear it. Laramie'd love to hear it. Let's hear about it.
Yeah, we'll bring it back for another mini episode if someone wants to make a good debate. All right, so there you have it. There's something for you to consider. Please leave a positive review, and you can email us, as I mentioned earlier, at movingpanels@gmail.com if you'd like to suggest a new topic. Thank you very much, Blake, for joining me on this one.
Absolutely, man. Take care, be well, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right, for Moving Panels, I'm Laramy Wells, and I'll see you on the other side of the page.
Because he does come back, but he reaches out for Rocket and says, good stuff.
Yeah. I'm going to pause because that was a big thing of thunder. I don't know if you could hear it.
Yeah, I heard. I was like, is my dog upstairs running around, or is that thunder over on the other side?
Okay.
If you get electrocuted through your headphones, that'd be amazing. Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm the host of the podcast This Morning Show. Every week, me and one of my two co-hosts, either my mom or my brother, will discuss a movie, new or old. Most of our movies are from Disney Plus and HBO Max and go from a wide variety of different movies. We do movies such as Toy Story and Home Alone, and we also do continuing series as The Mandalorian and Star Trek Discovery.